On April 17, 2025, in western Yemen, a heat signature flickered across Houthi radar screens. The object moved swiftly, flew high, and made no sound. Radar operators pegged it as a drone, a familiar target. They promptly fired 2 Sayad missiles, locking on and launching. But that night, their target wasn't a drone. It was a B-2 Spirit, the stealth sword of the U.S. Air Force. With its flying wing design and radar deflecting angles, the B-2 is nearly invisible to even the most advanced tracking systems. You only see a B-2 when it wants to be seen. That night, it didn't. The missiles streaked into the sky, but the B-2 vanished before the warheads reached altitude. No shootdown, no hit. It simply disappeared. As Houthi forces scrambled to understand what happened, the B-2 glided silently onward. Smooth and soundless, it beamed real-time reconnaissance data to Diego Garcia, thousands of miles away in the Indian Ocean. What the B-2 captured and relayed that night triggered a response the world never saw coming. This wasn't a routine strike, not drones buzzing Rasisa or destroyers firing warning shots. It marked the start of one of the most precise, strategic, and devastating airstrikes in recent U.S. military history. If you've seen our analysis of the Rasisa bombing, you know the aftermath. But this was the spark, the moment the Houthis made their gravest mistake by targeting the wrong plane. The retaliation wasn't just precise, it was personal. When the Sayad missiles launched, Houthi radar operators detected a heat signature, tracked its path, and assumed they were targeting a U.S. MQ-9 Reaper Drive 1, a common sight over Yemen. They didn't know this wasn't a drone scanning radar. It was a stealth bomber on a mission, and it was watching them, flying at high altitude, coated in radar-absorbing materials, and designed to counter electromagnetic waves. The B-2 Spirit penetrated Red Sea airspace in absolute silence. The B-2's radar cross-section is smaller than a bird's, rendering it nearly invisible to conventional detection systems. It doesn't just evade, it's built to be ignored. Yet somehow, a faint radar blip slipped through. Though just a weak glimmer, it gave the Houthis a shot, and they took it. From a hidden missile battery nestled in rocky hills near Al-Hudaydah, 2 surface-to-air missiles roared into the darkness. The B-2's warning system chirped softly. The pilots, mid-mission, executed defensive maneuvers and deployed decoys. The jet didn't need to dive or speed away. It just let its stealth do the job, vanish, and the missiles lost their target. No explosion, no impact, nothing. But the B-2's sensors recorded everything. Launch angles, infrared signatures, missile trajectories, and, critically, the battery's precise coordinates. From Diego Garcia, the data fed directly into real-time combat channels. Within seconds, analysts pinpointed the launch site, mapped surrounding terrain, and detected heat signatures from nearby equipment. What the B-2 captured wasn't just a lone threat, but part of a mobile launch network. As the Houthis rushed to reposition, the U.S. Air Force built a comprehensive profile of the battery. From there, everything shifted. Normally, even an advanced jet like the B-2 would complete its mission, relay data post-flight, and let ground command decide next steps. That night was different. The B-2 wasn't just scouting, it was fully armed, carrying GBU-57 penetrator bombs and JDAM systems optimized for hardened underground targets. Command didn't need hours to deliberate. Plans were already in place. The attack on the B-2 was deemed a direct provocation. The order came: retaliate immediately. The B-2's response wasn't loud, warned, or flashy. It arrived in silence, with absolute precision and total surprise. At high altitude, the B-2 adjusted its path, cloaked by clouds and terrain curves. A new strike profile uploaded from command. The jet tilted south by a few degrees. That small adjustment aligned its weapons perfectly with the Houthi battery. While ground forces hunted for confirmation of a kill, the B-2 locked GPS coordinates and prepared to drop. The first pair of JDAM bombs released silently. They fell by gravity, self-correcting mid-air, and struck a camouflaged equipment hub behind bunkers with a margin of error under 3 feet. The explosion was instantaneous. Secondary blasts lit up the hillside. The missile battery was now a crater. A new strike profile uploaded from command. The jet tilted south by a few degrees. That small adjustment aligned its weapons perfectly with the Houthi battery. While ground forces hunted for confirmation of a kill, the B-2 locked GPS coordinates and prepared to drop. The first pair of JDAM bombs released silently. They fell by gravity, self-correcting mid-air, and struck a camouflaged equipment hub behind bunkers with a margin of error under 3 feet. The explosion was instantaneous. Secondary blasts lit up the hillside. The missile battery was now a crater. Even in 2025, the B-2 still stuns adversaries. After decades of upgrades, countermeasures, and radar revolutions, the Spirit operates like a ghost. It's the jet even the most modern air defenses can't track. This made the Houthis' decision to fire on it not just dangerous but reckless. They didn't know what they were targeting, what they were provoking, or that their miss would trigger a data stream so precise it enabled follow-on US missions with surgical accuracy. That night, the B-2 didn't just drop bombs, it redrew the battlefield. It marked supply caches, mapped communication hubs, gathered thermal imagery, and streamed it live to joint operations centers. It gave US analysts a real-time pulse of Houthi operations. And it did all this while invisible. Hornet jets armed with GBU-38 JDAMs and AGM-88 HARM missiles roared toward Yemen's coast. This wasn't a prolonged campaign, it was a 6-minute blitz. The first targets, as the B-2 pinpointed, were the Sayyad missile battery that fired the 2 surface-to-air missiles. Precision bombs dropped from near stratospheric heights, punching through camouflage and concrete, obliterating a bunker deep underground. The battery erupted in fire and debris. A secondary explosion confirmed a hidden munitions cache was destroyed, but the bombers didn't stop. A mile south, an underground comms node was hit next. It had stayed silent for weeks until the B-2 spotted it. A bunker buster bomb erased it from the map. Meanwhile, fighters from the USS Truman struck Ras Isa. It wasn't just a port, it was a strategic artery. Fuel, finance, mobility. The Houthis thought the US wouldn't touch it. Too close to civilians, too risky. They were wrong. At 01:17 local time, Super Hornet jets skimmed low over the Red Sea, their radar signatures jammed by Growler aircraft. They unleashed a salvo of JDAMs on fuel tank clusters and underground tunnels. In under 30 seconds, secondary explosions ripped through the port's northern sector. Thermal imagery showed hotspots flaring in sequence, a perfect chain reaction. When the second wave hit, Ras Isa was a blazing canyon, but it wasn't over. Offshore, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer opened its vertical launch cells. 2 Tomahawk cruise missiles surged upward, skimming the sea. Their target was the southern perimeter of Ras Isa, where intelligence indicated arms transfers in a warehouse disguised as an oil depot. 1 missile hit the building. The other plunged into a tunnel entrance, collapsing the cliff above. Total strike time under 6 minutes. Total targets hit 17. The Houthis panicked. Radio signals cut off mid-transmission. Radar stations went dark. Infrared imagery showed vehicles fleeing inland, some without lights, doors still open. No coordinated response, no counterstrike. From the Pentagon, the mission log was filed. No collateral damage outside designated kill zones, no US casualties, all primary targets neutralized. But what made this mission historic wasn't the destruction, it was the trigger. A single mistake, firing on what the Houthis thought was a lumbering drone, unleashed the wrath of stealth air power, carrier-based firepower, and America's precision warfare doctrine. Not for revenge, but for policy. This wasn't just about destroying a battery. It was a reminder to everyone, from Iran to Moscow, that the US won't tolerate a second provocation. The message rang loud, clear, and forged in steel. For the Houthis, it was a brutal wake-up call. They didn't just fire on a bomber, they opened a door to something they couldn't control. By dawn, smoke from Ras Isa was visible from satellites. Infrared satellites logged heat signatures from what was once a fuel port. Now, it's a blackened, smoldering scar along the Red Sea coast. In Houthi territory, silence reigned. Too much silence. The remaining signals were pure chaos. Some Houthi units reported losing contact with Central Command. Others never reported back. Ground sensors detected groups abandoning vehicles, scattering on foot. But no public statements, no official retaliation announcements, just silence and fire. The Houthis knew what happened. They just underestimated how fast the US could strike without warning. For years, Ras Isa was a strategic blind spot. Even at the height of Saudi-led airstrikes, the port went untouched. The decision to hit Ras Isa wasn't random. It wasn't just about fuel or payback. The port didn't just store oil. It powered logistics, funded drone production, and served as a coded comms hub in western Yemen. US intelligence had tracked its rise for months, building the case that this wasn't infrastructure but a military node. When the B-2 was attacked, that identity shifted from theory to target, and the rules changed. Within 24 hours of the strike, oil markets wobbled. Global defense analysts scrambled to decode what happened. Did the US cross a red line? Or did the Houthis force Washington's hand? On encrypted Houthi channels, internal messages reflected something deeper than panic. It was confusion, constant questions about lost radar systems, queries about jammed GPS signals. Rumors of a cyber attack swirled. Officers demanded answers from a command that no longer existed. What they didn't realize was the B-2's data package didn't just trigger a strike, it dismantled their entire comms framework. Key relay stations vanished, command nodes were severed, mobile launch units were neutralized before they could relocate. And the US? No press conference, no grandiose announcement, just imagery, satellite photos of scorched earth. Everything had changed. For the Houthis, the idea that their missile systems could fire without consequence evaporated. For their backers, the message was sharper. Hide operations behind civilian assets, and those assets become legitimate targets. This wasn't just a response to provocation, it was a doctrinal shift. A new phase in the conflict where stealth bombers no longer loiter for orders, they hunt. Where ports doubling as war depots become targets. Where 6 minutes of radar silence might signal the next strike is already inbound. The impact of April 17th didn't stop at bomb craters. It reshaped the chessboard, and the next move? It's no longer the Houthis. Before that moment, the US posture in the Red Sea was largely defensive. Drones patrolled, destroyers shadowed shipping lanes. Threats were monitored, logged, and occasionally met with measured responses. Rules of engagement were cautious, calculated. That posture made the Ras Isa strike a game changer. This time, the US didn't just counter a provocation, they flipped the script. Deploying the B-2, the crown jewel of American stealth, wasn't just to hit hard. It was to signal intent. The kind of intent that says, we're not playing at your pace anymore. The Houthis, and more importantly, their backers in Tehran, Damascus, and beyond, were used to operating in the gray zone, launching drones from civilian areas, hiding weapons in infrastructure, placing command posts under oil facilities. Those tactics relied on one assumption. The US wouldn't risk the fallout of striking targets near civilian or economic sites, but the US said no. Ras Isa wasn't just destroyed, it was redefined. No longer a port, it's now a legitimate military target. And with that reclassification came a new doctrine: If it supports warfare, it's in the crosshairs. For Washington, this wasn't escalation, it was clarification. The strike told allies, adversaries, and fence-sitters that stealth bombers aren't for hypothetical wars. They're active, they're watching, and if provoked, they're cleared to engage. Not in days or hours, but in minutes. The battlefield didn't just shift geographically, it shifted psychologically. And that's the real victory, because war isn't fought with missiles and bombs alone. It's fought with confidence, tempo, and control over who makes the next move. After April 17th, the next move belongs to the one watching from above, silent and invisible. Yemen's skies are quiet again, but it's not peace. It's a pause. As the smoke clears over Ras Isa and signals drop, something fundamental has changed. Not just in terrain or tactics, but in tone. The United States has made it clear. The rules are different now. You don't fire on a B-2 and walk away. You don't hide behind infrastructure and assume it's untouchable. If you touch U.S. assets, we don't wait. We hit back, and we hit harder. That's all for now. We hope today's content brought you valuable insights. If you found it compelling, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth coverage. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow at the same time.